Rav Shalom made a mimer of the Rambam part of him. And that's the Agra, the Hespeda, the Luya. Not that you learn something and you close the Sefer and you forget about it. You take it with you wherever you go. Here's another thing he used to tell me all the time. Again, I don't come out looking good in this thing, but he always used to tell me, of course, when he came back the second and third time already, so I had a driver's license, and I used to drive him to the various drushes, and I was driving fast and talking fast and moving fast, and he always used to tell me with a Svartisha dialect, and I could never figure out why. He always told it to me with a Svartisha dialect until I was doing research once, and I found that a Svartisha Rishon Taka made up this expression. So I'll tell it to you the way he used to tell it to me, with a big laugh, and then I'll tell it to you in regular Hebrew and translate. He always used to say, Peri ha-mehirut ha-charata. Peri ha-mehirus. The fruit of rushing, mehirus from the word maher, is charata, is regret. Unless you're an atzola, slow down. Don't rush. If you rush to answer somebody who said something to you, most of the time you're going to regret in 5 minutes what you said. If you rush to make a decision, you're going to regret it. And if you rush on the motorway, they're going to catch you. Eventually they'll catch you. Peri ha-mehirus, the fruit of rushing, is charata, is regret. And here's another thing. You know, he told me, and it was obvious from the story, which I'll tell you in a moment. There are 3 words that are very difficult to say. And you know, I have a good friend who's a marriage counselor. That's not the reason he's my friend. But this marriage counselor once told me, the 3 most important words in marriage. You know what the 3 most important words in marriage are? Not the 3 words you think they are. The 3 most important words in marriage are, I was wrong. And this marriage counselor told me that if any couples can admit that they were wrong, then that's a step in the right direction. Rav Shalom was able to say about things in life, I was wrong. He told me he once, you know how we learned this? He told me he was once standing in a basement, she was a bacher, and the mashgiach was arguing with another boy. The mashgiach said something, and the bacher said another thing. So finally the boy said, oh, you said the mashgiach is correct. I see the mashgiach is right. So the mashgiach said, I don't need you to tell me that I'm right. I know I'm right. I want you to say that you're wrong. So the bacher says, oh, ich habe gesagt, dass der mashgiach is gerecht, meint es, ich bin nicht gerecht. If I said the mashgiach is right, that means I'm not right. He said, no, that's not enough. You have to be able to say, I was wrong. And Rav Shalom was able to say, I was wrong. He told over the story. It was amazing that he really let me print it. He told over a story. He told me that in Haifa, for whatever reason, in 1948 when they made the state, so the Egged buses are allowed to run in Haifa. No place else in Eretz Yisrael will Egged buses officially run on Shabbos. So there was tremendous Chilul Shabbos. They made a big Shabbaton. Rav Shalom was supposed to come in the early 1950s. He was supposed to speak in one show Friday night, another show Shabbos morning, Shabbos Shulis, and then he was supposed to speak all over about Chilul Shabbos and Shmir Shabbos. So what happened? Friday, that day, that Friday was Yom Ha'atzmaut. And there was a big Israeli parade. And the girls, the women soldiers, they were marching up front, and the mayor was sitting in a car with them. And Rav Shalom saw it, that's how I wrote it, and he was so angry. Now, every time when I wrote a story, of course he doesn't read English, so the Maggid Speaks are all his stories. The other books are already stories that I gathered from other places. But his stories, I used to put it on tape in Yiddish, and he would listen to it, and then he would give me comments. When I told him this story, how I was writing it, he said, Was bist du mishuga? Du gehst schreiben, als ich habe geguckt auf der Bible, sag mal, I was part from your Shalayim. What are you, crazy? You're going to write that I saw that women marching? You think I would watch women marching? I heard they were there. So I switched it. He heard the women were there. Fine, I'm sure he heard. It was my mistake. I was wrong. Fine. Okay, good. So I switched it and I wrote that he heard that the women were there and was very angry. So Friday night, of course, he didn't speak about Shabbos. He spoke about against the Israeli army, and he spoke against the Medina. Why do they have to have women in the army? And preachers kahena v'kahena. And he made everybody in the show angry. He didn't care. He felt that's the right thing to do. Shabbos morning, again, it was a different shul, same speech. So he went and he said, how do the women go to the army? How does the mayor sit in the car with the women? It's a Hazayan, preachers, everything like that. Shabbos Shulis, and by the time Motzei Shabbos rolled around, 5,000 people in Haifa were angry at him. So Sunday, if you go to Eretz Yisrael, we all know it's not a Sunday like here. You don't feel Sunday in Eretz Yisrael. I was there last week. I said to my son, well, what day is this? Is this Monday? No, Sunday. It's a regular day. So Sunday they had a municipal meeting, And they decided they banned him from speaking for a year. He can't come back to Haifa for a year. So he went back by train. He didn't know about it. He went back by train to Yerushalayim. Such juicy Lashon Hara travels real quick. By the time he gets to Yerushalayim, they told him, "Oh, Shalom! You thought you did a good thing. They threw you out of Haifa. You can't come back for a year." So deep down, he was a very sensitive person. And after a couple of days, he began thinking, maybe I was wrong. I think I was right. You have to stand up, preach us. Eis Lasis Hashem, you have to say what you feel. So he decides he's going to go to the Brisker Rav. He goes for a Vilna Soloveitchik, and he tells him that he heard that the women were there, and that he was angry, and he spoke all against the Pritos and the army and everything. Listen what the Brisker Rav told him. He said, every day you make a bracha on Birchas HaTorah? Yeah. What bracha do you make? Ashek B'Shalom Tetzis Vana Lasek B'Divrei Seira. So the Brisker Rav said, the bracha seems to be unusual. After all, you're learning Torah. So the bracha should be Ashek B'Shalom Tetzis Vana Lil My Torah. Why does it say Lasek? What does that word Lasek mean? So he said, you know what Lasek means? Lasek comes from the word Asek, which means a business, like Iska. So he says, if you want to have Atzlacha and Torah and mitzvahs, you got to treat it like a business. If you're in business, you don't go out every 5 minutes for a coffee break. If you're in business, you don't go out to make personal calls every time the mobile phone rings. It just rang by somebody. But the idea is, I didn't plan that, but the idea is that if you want to be serious about Torah, you got to treat it like you treat your business. And he said to him, if you are going for a business, you wouldn't have spoken about the army or the princess, you would have spoken about the business. You were supposed to speak about the business of Shabbos. You spoke about the business of princess. You didn't accomplish for princess, and you didn't accomplish for Shabbos. And Rav Shalom told this story because he was able to say, I was wrong. And he was able to show that what the Brisker Rav taught us about the bracha Lasek B'Divrei Seira is that if you're serious about Torah, you're going to treat it like a business. There's a pasuk. Many of us know the pasuk is in Mishlei Chav Zayin Chav Aleph. The pasuk says, "Ve'ish lefi mahalolai." A person is the way they praise him. For example, let's say I mentioned the name of Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. What would you say? Oh, such a wonderful Talmud Chacham, such a sensitive person. He wrote so many Svarim, Shabbos, Shuvas, he was Moshe. So a person is the way people praise him. If I mentioned the name of Mr. Eichmann, you would say, he had so much money and he gave so much stuff all over the world. What a generous, kind person. A person is the way you praise him. But Rabbi Yehuda has a different touch. Ve'ish, a person is lefi mahaloloi, what he praises. What you praise shows what you are. If you go to a bar mitzvah and the only thing you can talk about is that the kugel wasn't good, then your head is in kugel. Or if you can say, wow, that chomp, I wish my wife made a chomp like that. That's what you praise? What about the bar mitzvah boy's speech? And what about the Rov's vort? That's what you should be praising. Or if a woman comes home from a chasana and all she can praise is somebody's outfit. Or a koil human man comes home and all he can praise is the Ferrari he saw on the way home. So, das liegt im Kopf. We have to be careful what we praise, especially in front of children. Because what we praise in front of our children, that's really what we are. And Rav Shalom used to praise the old tzaddikim of Yerushalayim all the time. He had such a love for them. Listen to the names of these people. Who would ever hear of them? I mean, if you're a Litvish Shabachar, so you know all the Rosh Hashivas. If you're a Hasidic Shabachar, you know all the Rebbes. But the old Gishmak tzaddikim, who knew about them? Rav Chaim Todris, Rav Mordechai Oshmina, Rav Chaim Moletsky, Rav Nochem Shadeke, such Gishmak names. And he had such beautiful, edel, fine zitza stories about these people. Why? Because that's what he was. He was from the old tzaddikim of Yerushalayim. Listen to this story. He used to tell us. I love this so much because everybody knows Meir Sharon. So he said there was a builder. His name was Rav Zalman. Rav Zalman's father was Rav Nochem. So they didn't call people by the last name in the old Yerushalayim. They said he was Rav Zalman Rav Nochem. That's how they called him. So Rav Zalman Rav Nochem, he was a builder. And he built that area of Meir Sharon. Why is it called Meir Sharon? Rav Shalom once told us. Because they finished building it, Pashas told us. And in Pashas told us, it says, Vayizra Yitzchak ba'aretz, Yitzchak planted in the land, in that land, Vayimtza Hashem ahi Meir Sharon. He found 100 times more than what he had planted. By Baruch Hashem, the Eibishter benched him. The Eibishter blessed him. That's how you name a city. You take something from the Parsha, and you call it Meir Sharon. So now every time I come to Meir Sharon, it's a different Meir Sharon. I wouldn't have known that. It's not the most significant story in the world, but the idea is, it was Gishmak, it was beautiful, it was sensitive, how the old tzaddikim of Yerushalayim thought, and that's what he was. He was from the old tzaddikim of Yerushalayim. You know, a lot of people didn't know his personal anhagas. Many times before he ate a meal, he would say to me and my brothers, he would say, tell me mutalach. I made a neder. You got to tell me mutalach. So my brothers and I would say, oh no, tell us, what did you say? You know, we wanted to know his anhaga. Snidan Yeshef. Avshalom, you need us to tell you mutalach. So he would tell. He used to learn every day 18 parakim of Mishnayos. Before he ate a meal, he learned 6 parakim of Mishnayos. He knew Mishnayos Balpel like we know Ashrei. So it happened sometimes it was very late at night and he was hungry and he had to eat for whatever reason he couldn't learn the Mishnayos. So a minute that you do, or a custom, a double third that you do more than 3 times in a row, it becomes like a neder. So he wanted we should say mutalach. He was involved in the writing and publication of over 50 svarim. His grandfather's svarim, the Masham, the Dastaira, his Rebbe, Rav Leib Chasman, the Oryoel, and the Sefer of Rabbi Lapyan, Leib Elio. He once learned, think of this, from Teves, the month of Teves, which is like in the winter, till Pesach time. He once learned Bava Basra twice. Bava Basra is the biggest Masechet, it's 176 plot. So from Teves till Pesach, he learned it twice. So my brother-in-law, unfortunately, had to, well, I mean, he meant it sincerely. He said to Avshalom, mid-Taisvis or the non-Taisvis? So Avshalom took off his glasses and looked at him and said, Vos Meisach ben Abalabos? What do you mean? Any Balabos could learn, you know, from Tevis to Pesach. I can't even say the words that fast. He learned it with all the Taisvis. And you know something? Most people didn't realize. He had a tiniest dibur every Monday and Thursday. He didn't talk. Unless he was giving a drosha. But when you went to his house on Monday and Thursday, it was tough. Because he wouldn't talk, he only wrote. Maybe, he would say a pasuk. And through that pasuk, he was supposed to figure out what he meant. But he was a man who was the biggest darshan in the world, and every Monday and Thursday, he had such control not to talk. He told me once that he used to have a minute. I mean, I saw it. From Rosh Chodesh Elul till Yom Kippur, he didn't talk. Could you imagine what that is unless he said Divrei Torah for a month, 40 days? And he told me that when he went out with his wife, went out. And it's not like we go out. You know, they went out maybe from the kitchen to the living room if they even went out that far. But when he met with his wife, his future wife, Rav Shlomo Zalman's sister, so he told her before they got engaged that this is his hanhaga. And he's not going to change. So if she accepts it, you know, they can get engaged. But if not, not. And she was a tzaddikas. She accepted it. It's a great thing for Shalom Bayis. But the idea is, it was an element of Avodas Hashem. You know, he had certain stories that he loved to tell. Certain stories that were just so special. You know, there was one story that he would love to tell. And I must have heard this story without exaggeration from him 40 times. And if I include tapes, maybe 50 times. He always told this story. At one time he was sitting and writing in his house. And he always said he was writing in his shirt sleeves. I mean, I never saw, maybe I saw him once or twice without a jacket, but he always wore a jacket or a scapota, but he always used to say he was writing in the shirt sleeves in his house, and all of a sudden his wife comes running in, that there was a little kid, Nabach Merke, who fell, and he cut over the eye, and he was gushing blood. There was a fat kid and a skinny kid were playing. So you know the fat guys, they always take advantage of the skinny guys. So the fat guy, he should have been the horse, and the skinny guy should have been the rider. So this fat guy says, you be the horse, I'll be the rider. So the kid sat on the skinny kid, the poor kid fell face down, and he cut over his eye, and Avshalom's Rebbetzin runs in, said, blutig. So they take a wet rag, Avshalom picks up the kid, and he's running up the hill. And you know how it is in Eretz Yisrael, something like that happens, and the whole tumult, all the little kids, they're all running after Avshalom. So he's running, he's got a whole entourage running behind him, and coming down the hill is this boy's grandmother. And she sees Avshalom, and he's so excited, and he's running, and he's huffing and puffing. So she says to him, Avshalom, he can bathe, and David should help, like, take it easy. David should help him. So Avshalom thought to himself, we'll see in a second what she says. Anyway, in a second, when she comes down the hill and I go up, and she realizes that it's her grandson. So as he's running up and she's coming down closer, she realizes, hey, wait a second, Avshalom doesn't have a boy that's that age, his kid is much older. So she says, oh, it's a David should help him. But she says it like a little bit calmer. And then as he runs by her and she sees it's her grandson, she starts screaming, Meir Keh! So two neighbors that are watching upstairs, they say, it's a David should help him. And Rav Shalom always used to say, "It's in my